So we're ready to roll. Cameras look good. So welcome everyone to another episode of Culture Content. My name is Kay.
I'm Chaz.
And we are Culture Content. We are here with a special guest today, a very special guest, Miss Dr. Gay Lee, very exceptional woman. And we have a lot to talk about regarding the homeless rate in America. And we are honored to have a guest such as Dr. Gay Lee to join us and elaborate on what causes people to even enter that state of mind. So enjoy. Dr. Gay Lee, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So let's just roll this off. We know homelessness is a topic that we don't often discuss among our peers and co-workers, and it's just one of those elephants in the rooms that never gets us addressed.
It's kind of one of them things, like you said, never addressed, but we see it every day, but we never take the time to really understand what goes on to even make that person homeless.
Right, exactly. So it's good that we speak on this, because we, on average, the average American probably sees at least one or two homeless people just driving, or just on a day, or just going to work, or going home from work. You might see the same person going to work and going home. So, Dr. Gay, please tell us about yourself and why you chose this particular topic today.
Okay. I recently received my doctorate. I've been studying homelessness for I think since 94.
Wow.
Yeah. It's probably the one social problem that's near and dear to my heart. I'm a licensed social worker. And, well, I think it's longer than that. Yeah, that's about 29 years. My brother was homeless.
Mm-hmm.
He was homeless and on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I wasn't sure what to do with him, but I knew that since he had a social worker or all of these people working with him who called themselves social workers,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand why they couldn't help him.
Right.
Mm.
He was homeless, living on the street, on drugs, and had HIV.
Wow.
And even today, that same scenario for people is operating. The thing that never gets talked about
Mm-hmm.
is that people who experience houselessness have other people who love them.
Absolutely. They have a village, they have families.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They do. And I refer to it as people who experience houselessness,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to saying homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I say it that way, then I'm not defining a person by their situation.
Mm.
Okay.
Homelessness means that a person doesn't have a place to live. That's what it means to most people.
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't want to live on the street, don't want to live in a shelter, don't want to live in places where it's just not theirs to call home.
Absolutely.
Right.
So it's their situation
Mm-hmm.
that created their houselessness.
Right.
But for that, they would have a place to stay in most situations.
Mm-hmm. So I don't want to jump the gun. I know you had, another question came to my mind. Why do you think people choose not to go back to their families to get help, or to, ask family members? Like, is it a pride? It has to be more than a pride thing, because, in my mind, it's just like everybody needs help one way or another. No matter where you at in life, there's like people, I've been on assistance, I've been on public assistance. I've gotten food stamps in my lifetime. I've reached out for help when needed, and got rid of it when needed. And I've asked family members too, like, can I stay here? Like, what's the gap? What's the mindset what's the gap there, like, that people can't ask for help? Because I feel like there's a solution, So,
yeah. I think the gap is the way we look at people who experience houselessness. It is like falling, and the kind of falling that doesn't stop. Because once a situation has gotten so bad that a person can't live in the house, it's not that their situations change and they can come back. That would be the easy way.
Okay.
And when that happens, we're all happy for that family who managed to pull it together and then get it together and become their unit again.
Okay.
What happens is once a person begins the journey of houselessness, that fall from grace continues, and people generally go from not having a place to stay to sleeping on a friend's couch, getting money here and there to help them to eat. They go from not having a place to live and being homeless to being okay and getting a hand. Like you said, Kay, that you've had to ask family members for assistance. I think we've all had to ask family members for assistance. But it's when the family member feels like the assistance is beginning to be too much, and the person living in their house and sleeping on their couch is beginning to be too much.
Yeah.
And then it's like a snowball. Right. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So they move from not having a place to live to becoming emotionally compromised.
Yeah.
What that means to me is that their wherewithal, their ability to pick themselves up by their bootstraps and move on is becoming tattered. It's becoming more and more difficult. Right. As that happens, emotional problems set in. Because remember, the person comes from someplace.
Right.
They come from a family that loved them. And now they're at a place where they're feeling like no one loves them, really. And as they start getting comfortable with not having a place to stay, they join social groups. This sort of, we're all in the same boat. Let's stay out here. I'm going to get myself together and I'll be fine. But while they're out there, depression sets in, anxiety sets in. How could it not?
Absolutely.
There's no way for depression and anxiety not to set in when you look back and all of your social supports, your family, sometimes even the church, all of these places are not in your rearview mirror. Once that happens, then their emotional wherewithal is not just tattered, but it becomes complicated. And complicated by mental health challenges, by drugs. If I had to sleep in the park, quite honestly, the only way I could do it is if I was absolutely stoned. Because then I wouldn't know what situation I was in.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You forget.
That's the truth of it.
Yeah.
So and it gets harder once their situation becomes complicated and too complicated for them to look look back and just snap it back in place, all of these social problems and social behaviors start to develop.
Right.
Now, it sort of sounds like I'm blaming the person, but what I'm doing, I hope, is having you look at these situations. My brother could not stop using heroin. And I could not stop telling him that that was the only thing he needed to do, and then he could stay with me. But he couldn't stay with me because he always had a hypodermic needle somewhere, and I had children.
Right.
Yeah.
So that puts you in a weird position, right, because you want to help.
In a very weird position.
Right, but you can't allow and condone that in your house with kids, 2 kids.
Well, you're right. And even the siblings that didn't have hypodermic needles were part of the crack epidemic.
Right.
And they couldn't live in the house with me because they had to feed this addiction. It's not that they were bad people. When we got together to have a good time, I don't care what state they were in, we had a good time.
Right.
And I love them. These are the people I washed my face and hands with and brushed my teeth, all in running in and out of the bathroom together. So these are people that I love, but I couldn't fix it.
Right.
And worst of all, I couldn't understand why the social workers that worked with them couldn't fix it. That was a challenge for me. So my point is, it's not them. It's the situations that they found themselves in. But for those situations, they would have been great. They were always good people. Homeless people have people who love them.
Right. Homeless people are some of the most genuine, caring people too. That's out there, because even with having nothing, they'll still give you whatever they have left. You know, they'll give you the shirt, clothes, sneakers.
They'll definitely share.
And you know, I think as a society, I think that, you know, we should all take a lesson at least from just caring about each other and helping each other, you know, move forward. So, and I also wanted to bring up how you mentioned the crack epidemic. You know, that was something that we couldn't control. And we don't, you know, you may hear about it in raps or movies and everything, but nobody really talks about the long-term effects that had on people. And I'm pretty sure like I don't know a lot of homeless people, but I feel like that is also, you know, crack was an epidemic that was put into our communities. And it just had these effects that some people couldn't get out of that mind state to let that go. And like you said, they just couldn't get off of it. And those are demons and monsters in itself that, you know, no average person wants to talk to you about already, right? So imagine being in their shoes and trying to like pour out and have people understand, like, you know, I may have gone through this in my lifetime. I was never able to get out of it. And now I'm in this position. So yeah, I loved your answer on that. But why do you care to change the perception of homeless people and how society thinks about homeless people?
Because that's the only way we could offer them help. If I say that you're homeless, then really what I'm doing is blaming you for your situation. And I'm saying that you're homeless and nobody wants to be bothered with you. When the truth is, what's done in the US, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say in the world, at least according to the studies that I've read, No one is doing anything about homelessness because there's only two things that the term homelessness can bring. A census count, so we know how many people it is,
Mm-hmm.
and a description of who has a place to live and who doesn't. But that's not resolving the problem.
No.
It's not.
Because the problem is not that they don't have a place to live. The problem is their situations have not changed.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact have gotten worse.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fix the situation, the person will do better. Think about all of those Facebook and Instagram posts that we've read or that you've read that said from homelessness to a Port Authority job, from homelessness to something else, and the person is doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's their loss of employment that caused their homelessness. So if you fix their situation,
they won't be homeless.
They won't be homeless.
Right.
A person who's experiencing some kind of mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
If you help them with the mental illness, they'll be able to function.
Right.
There are so many not-for-profit organizations in the United States, and perhaps every state has a Department of Homeless Services.
Mm-hmm.
These are giant-sized bureaucratic systems that have no initiatives that help people out of their situations. They help them locate housing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a great idea.
Okay.
But then how are they going to maintain it?
Right.
I
have a question about that too.
Yeah.
Who's going to help them? Who's going to help them to stay in their apartment?
Mm-hmm.
You have a question. I'm pretty sure I have an answer. Go ahead, shoot.
No, but what I want to say, right, is like, this is a statement that I have a question, but there's a big stigma around homelessness, right?
Mhm.
That they are on drugs, that they ran away from home, all these type of different things, right? But obviously, like you said, that's not really the case. You know, somebody could have really fell on bad times and lost their job. Didn't really have like a financial plan. So therefore, you know, you was living paycheck to paycheck, and, you know, the paychecks didn't stop. Like during the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs. So it's possible that a lot of people became homelessness or houselessness, like you said, because of this situation. So, and I like the fact that what you said, Kay, as well, is like, and I see that too. A lot of homelessness people try to help other people as well, not just you know, other people that they see as in the same position as them. But if you need directions or something, they might be able to help you. You know what I mean? Obviously, there's always going to be people in the world that don't want that, you know, is going to try to take advantage of you or things of that nature. Or I think another thing is when you see people like kind of panhandling for money, us as people, we are kind of skeptical to even give them money or give them food because we might think, oh, they're using it for drugs or something like that. No, these people really, really, really may need it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big stigma we have around them. And the fact that we have initiatives and departments literally in 50 states, there's a building for it, there's a plan for it, but it's no execution. It's like zero execution. Right. And it doesn't make sense. So the question I always want to ask, like, what is the initiative or what is America's initiative for it? But you answered it. There really is none. Like right. they have all the resources to do something, but yeah, you can show somebody where they can get housing from, but what about the job? You know, what about, you know, childcare, all these different types of things. Mm-hmm. And it's just interesting how we can really see people fail or failing and really just kind of turn our head to not really do anything about it. I think that's kind of sad.
Sure. We blame them for their situations. Mm-hmm. You know, in the United States, there's almost 1 million people what's counted is something like 569,000, 570,000, but I'm pretty sure it's more than that because that is generally the count from the departments of homeless services.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the count from street homelessness.
Right.
Yeah, I would have trouble thinking that there was only 500 people sleeping on the street in each state.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's more than that. And there's places that we won't go to look. When I think about a resolution, I don't know if you or anyone is aware of this, but the departments, and I'm talking about all 50 states, the departments of homeless services don't traditionally hire social workers to assist people who are having these experiences.
Why is that?
Because they don't see the need for social workers, and they see social workers as social service people. And I tell you, I've been a social worker for 29 years, and I can't imagine what social services I've ever learned in any school. And I'll go even further and say there are most social workers don't know how to fill out a housing application because that's not part of our training. Our training is to fix the problems, not complete the paperwork. We're not paper pushers. So these systems that hire social workers, their job descriptions are for social workers to write biopsychosocial assessments, and we do that. But then they're not read. Nobody's reading them because the challenge isn't to do away with the issues that brought the person into shelter services or caused them to live on the street. The challenge is to find a landlord who's willing to take them.
So do you?
And after a person has lived on the street, after a person has lived on the street for a certain length of time, maybe a year, they start losing their ability to maintain community living behaviors. And if they've lived on the street for more than a year, which many of them have, it's difficult for them to be a neighbor because social norms and values change. When I worked with a street to homes program, the notion was that we should go wake some person up in the park and say, do you want an apartment? And they'll say yes, and you get them an apartment. But then the agency wasn't giving them furniture, didn't give them a bed to sleep on. They didn't have a fork. So they were better off on the park bench.
Yeah.
At least somebody would help them and give them something, give them the tools.
Right.
That's crazy.
There's no aftercare system. These are cracks in the systems that cause people to stay homeless.
Right, because it's almost like it's a short-term solution, almost, right?
I don't think it's a short term. I think it's like a Band-Aid, like on a somebody got a broken, bloody arm, and you try to put a little, doctor stuff in his Band-Aid or something on it, and
you're still bleeding.
It's a way. It's a way for politicians to congratulate themselves on the great work they did when they helped to locate housing, and then the community is up in arms. So for the 6 months that this project has been developed, it's okay, but the behaviors haven't changed. The survival skills that the person has in the street remain.
Right.
And sometimes they're bringing their shopping carts and their old furniture and their old clothes into the apartments.
Mhm.
So these are behaviors that have to change. If I said, I'm going to send pizza to both of you, and I did that, but I didn't send a fork, you wouldn't notice.
No.
You wouldn't notice that I didn't send a fork. But if I sent spaghetti,
right,
you would notice.
That's right. Or if you give us soup.
or soup.
Yeah.
So
Get it. Yeah.
you have to give people the tools that they need so that they could stay in their apartments, so that they could sustain tenancy.
So,
and social workers teach those tools, and they help to undo these problems that a person who's been living on the street have, by helping them to correct their situations.
So you were saying that you say that homeless people need social workers because they can help them, one, execute at least getting the home, and then executing a plan.
The aftercare plan.
The
aftercare plan.
I think that's the most important. I love that. That's so key.
And they can get them like on a plan or a track to get back on board. So I mean, we need more social workers.
I still work for them, and I don't think they'll mind if I mention their name, Core Services. The president insists on having social workers trained to work with the staff to help them to understand the connection between that psychosocial assessment that's written, the biopsychosocial assessment. What's going on with them physically? Are they physically sick? Do they have psychiatric problems? Do they have substance abuse problems? Teach the staff how to locate housing and develop resources that center around correcting these situations. And that has been a hard sell in many places because it is really number crunching. I worked for another organization who thought I lost my mind when I started talking about aftercare and teaching people how to survive without this great bureaucratic safety net that seems to keep them needing it in order to survive.
Absolutely.
If you work with the residents or people living on the street to develop skills that help them to sustain an apartment, they're not thumbing their nose at you. They're not saying, get out of here, I'd rather live in the street because I know I'm safe out here. They're saying, okay, let me see what you have, because the last person that tried to help me didn't do so good, so now I don't trust none of you.
Yeah, they're real skeptical.
But I'm willing to listen to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's hard to be sold a dream, and one too many dreams. Yeah, I'm canceling.
Yeah,
right. That's
right.
Everybody will.
Yeah, that's human nature. Like,
yeah,
that doesn't, whether you're homeless or not. Like, that's just everybody's mindset. So I have a question about homeless people in major cities. I feel like a lot of homeless people migrate to cities such as New York, LA, Washington, DC, where, we have the biggest populations, and they say it's a fact that California is reported to have 47% of the homeless people, across America. Why is it that homeless people migrate to major cities? It's because you got to think it's already hard enough to find housing, right? In those cities, people who actually have jobs or getting turned down left and right, and or the apartment is too small, and it's just like, why don't they go to a smaller city? I mean, I hate to say it like this, but like, you're already homeless. Like, why don't you go to a smaller city per se, and you may be better off with getting more resources and have a better plan of action per se to get back on track. Because when you're in major cities like that, like, it's almost flooded, like diluted,
you can get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, exactly. You get lost in the shuffle, and because there's too many people to help. Like, if I want to do something, if I want to blow up, like, or make something, I mean, I guess the mindset is to go to New York to get more traction, but in the same sense, like Chad said, you get lost in the shuffle. Whereas you go to a smaller city, PA or Colorado, I don't know, you know what I mean? Any smaller population where they can be like, well, we can actually do this for you. We can set you up for a plan of success, a long-term plan. But people migrate to major cities. What's your take and opinion on that mindset, to go to a larger city instead of a smaller city?
Well, larger cities have resources.
Okay.
They have more resources, and small cities have resources as well. Not as many as a large city, but they have resources. So the United States is made up of states, of course, and each state has a certain amount of counties, and each county is made up of towns, villages, and cities. Usually in a county, you have 2 or 3 cities. For instance, I live in Orange County, New York. Orange County is made up of towns, villages, and cities. It has three cities. And the county is run by a county executive. And the county executive is responsible for, we call it making whole. The county executive is, and the county is responsible for taking care of the city, the towns, and the villages. So there's a reason in some places you don't see an abandoned building, or if you see an abandoned building, it looks like the best kept thing since 7-Up.
Right.
But in a city, you'll see abandoned buildings, you'll see a lot of poverty, you'll see drugs. That's because cities are pretty independent. But you'll also see a Department of Social Services. In Orange County, instead of spreading the wealth, the services or the resources are in one city. That's the city of Newburgh, where I live.
Right.
So they don't have a Department of Social Services in Middletown, or if they do, it's not as big as the one in the city of Newburgh. And in Port Jervis, if they do, it's not as big as the one in the city of Newburgh. So here we first collected that big problem, the Department of Social Services. Then enters the not-for-profits. All of these non-tax paying entities providing a service that helps a person to sustain their benefits. So when I think in terms of why people move to a city, they're not moving to the city because they're finding opportunity. They're moving to the city because they're finding resources, and the resources that was in their towns and villages are non-existent. And a good example of that is, think about a very plush area where you live, and think about whether or not you'll see a methadone clinic or needle exchange program or harm reduction or mental health agency. No, because the taxpayers there refuse to let it happen, even though the need is equally as great. They'd rather send their people into a city
somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's funny when you said that, I thought of two places out here that I've been to a lot, or have to take my kids through, or whatever, and I've never seen like snow trash on the floor like that. There's not a lot of people panhandling. There's just, the house is different. Everything is just different. At Fox Chapel.
Yeah.
Or like Sewickley. There's those places you don't see as much. You don't even see any abandoned homes, like you said. The roads, if it's a pothole, it's fixed immediately. You know what I mean? Or things of that nature. So it just, is put things in perspective, how other towns and townships work individually.
It's a way of regulating the poor and regulating people. It's a way of weeding them out and keeping them out.
Right.
So it is such a serious social injustice, but it is one that is designed by politicians. Let me ask you, have you seen The Wire?
Yes.
Yes. Long time.
Do you remember how they regulated drug use in The Wire?
Yeah, they Amsterdam. They went to, it was like two or three blocks where it wasn't a lot of they basically, the people that was living there, they got them out of there, but it was an abandoned area. I think it was like one lady still living there, and they didn't even know. But they let it basically, they let the
area become completely drug infested. They let it die. They let the area and the people die. Once that happened, they went in to clean up the area. And then who bought these very cheap homes?
Because the property value decreased so much that therefore you can get these homes for pennies on a dollar.
You can get them for $1.
Yeah.
When I was on the city council in Newburgh, there were landlords who was buying property for $1.
That's wild.
Sorry about that.
So good.
There was landlords.
You that, doctor. I mean, we know people calling you. You're a busy person. We appreciate you being here with us still, though.
That was Marvin Gaye. How sweet it is to be loved by you.
How sweet it is to be loved by. Yeah, we know. We also. I know a little bit about a little bit.
Okay. Okay. But yeah, when you regulate the poor by moving people to cities, you really expand poverty. You keep poverty in one area, and then it's easy for politicians to develop sound bites around supportive housing, affordable housing, low income housing, when the people that need housing may not need low income housing. There's two issues that we didn't touch on, and I would really like to. The amount of people who are homeless, who are members of the LGBTQ community, who were asked to leave their residence after they came out. And many of them, especially teenagers, are living on the street.
Go ahead.
You on something, so I'm gonna ask about teens in a second. Like, the resources for those. But continue. You was on a good.
Many teens get caught out there and end up forced into some kind of really terrible situation, some prostitution, some drugs. And when young people are manipulated into providing a service so that they could stay in someone's house, what ultimately happens is when they can't be used anymore, they end up on the street. And then that service that they were providing in that house is provided on the street. And if you fix that situation, the person will fix the behavior, that survival behavior. I don't want to say prostitute because it might not always be prostitution, but it's a serious problem. The other problem is that at least 85%, and I'm guessing because I don't have any stats in front of me, but at least 85% of these people are Black. And I'm not saying people of color. I'm deliberately saying Black. I know in New York City, the Blacks are far more likely to live in shelter services or live on the street than any other group. And that's not because they're dysfunctional. That's because there is just no service. And there is an element of racism. That's what I believe. Yeah.
That was a great point. And I want to go back to
you're gonna go back to one of them.
I'm gonna go back to a point you brought up not too long ago about affordable housing and low income housing. I've made a living working in that field, so I'm very familiar with different government programs out there that actually help people get back into homes, rent homes, buy homes. So my question is related to HUD. If people don't know, HUD is the Housing for Urban Development in the U.S., and they basically fund other government programs for rental assistance and to get people back on track. So my question as it pertains to HUD is, has HUD or this government agency helped? Has it improved or worsened the homeless rate in America? Because, you basically said, like, yeah, you can give somebody a home, but without a plan of action afterward, is it really, is our money is it worthwhile to, is it doing justice, basically, for the people?
So I have to say to both of you, you're making me work hard for my money. I thought this was going to be easy peasy and I'll be one and done.
We came ready. We had the doctor. We came ready.
You came, exactly. You showed up with all of my tools.
we thank you.
Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah.
HUD is Housing and Urban Development. Housing and urban development. It's not a social service agency. They provide housing and they develop urban areas.
Right, that's it.
That's what they do. If I was to someone from HUD, we'd be speaking two different languages because HUD is Housing and Urban Development. And they're also very much wedded to the notion of human rights. People having a right to have a place to live, a clean place to live. So they'll hold a landlord's feet to the fire.
Right.
But HUD isn't made up of social workers.
Yeah.
I have spent my life helping people who find themselves in these situations, fix their situation so that they could sustain an apartment and helping them to prepare for locating adequate housing through HUD programs. If HUD is making a contribution to homelessness or houselessness, their contribution is that Section 8 is closed.
In a lot of major cities, right?
Right. But their contribution is not that they're forcing people into homelessness. They're not pushing people into situations where they cannot sustain an apartment. HUD is not doing that, and be damned the landlord that HUD finds doing that. Because HUD is an entity that doesn't, they don't say, you're mistreating this tenant, and we asked you not to. HUD is the entity that walks in and says, okay, we talked to you about this 3 times, now give us all our money back for the past 10 years.
Ooh,
so
yeah.
nobody wants to double cross them.
No. It's the government.
Double cross.
Right.
HUD is that ugly sibling that says, you owe me $5. No, you do owe me $5. Well, I tell you what, give me all my money that I've given you over the past 25 years. However long they've been giving you money,
they want it all back.
They want it all back when you are not compliant. And they don't tolerate disrespecting residents. So
the very poor resident.
I have had to have conversations with HUD and shaking in my boots, making sure I did the right thing, giving the person chance after chance after chance after chance to show HUD, this is what I've done. So that you don't get in the meeting and they flip the script and it's all about what you have not done and how many people complained about you. So I would say that if HUD is making a contribution, their contribution is that they shut down Section 8, or it's difficult for a person to get Section 8. Their contribution isn't that they are deliberately doing anything. And those of us who can take the time to read their rules, because HUD's rules are, you need a degree in reading HUD's rules.
Yeah,
but not to worry because, not to worry because everybody that works for HUD understands HUD's rules.
Fair housing.
It's like NCIS Rule 5.
Yeah.
That's how they talk to you on the phone, really. So I wouldn't say that they're making a contribution to homelessness. I would say that HUD is doing everything they can to resolve the situation, but they can't resolve it when you have entities that doesn't hire the people that do the work.
The execution, like we spoke about.
Right. Most places, and in the United States and outside of the United States, believe housing specialists are the rock stars and the path toward resolving homelessness. The problem is, most of the housing specialists are not required, in most places, housing specialists are not required to have an education.
Right. And then they don't even train the housing specialists on actual HUD government policies sometimes. They may train the supervisor, to know the regulations.
In agencies, in city agencies, the housing specialist has to have a litany of landlords that they could talk to. But when you set that situation up, it really becomes a picking war. I'll take this one. I'll take that one. No, I'm not taking him. This guy is really bad. That's how landlords pick their tenants. I'm not sure I want to work. No. This guy, he looks like he has too many problems. You have to ask yourself,
It happens.
and let's be very honest. You own a 4-family dwelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I come to you, I'm the housing specialist. And I want to rent one of my clients needs an apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring my client to you, and his nose is running, and he's pacing back and forth talking to himself. He shows up drunk.
I'm already like
It's
red flag.
It's 7:30 in the it's 7:30 in the morning, and the client is drunk.
Oh God.
Or their clothes is dirty, or they're doing something that says to you in your small dwelling with all of these nice people who move past your building and the nice people who live there, who would never understand.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rent, or would you say no? Bring somebody else. Come on, let's keep it real. You'd say bring.
I'm gonna say no, but because I know about fair housing and stuff, like I wouldn't want to. Like I would try to maneuver my way out of that. Like, look, they just didn't qualify. I went through the training process. I would come up with something to say they don't.
I get that. You wouldn't discriminate.
Right.
I'm happy to hear that, because when this goes live, if you say you would discriminate, I would take you down, yelling and screaming, how dare you,
I ain't
how
trying
dare
to lose
you.
my job neither, you know what I mean?
No, but the truth of the matter is everyone doesn't work for HUD.
Yeah.
Some people are just regular people, and I have a 3-family house, and I want to rent to 2 people who receive Section 8.
Mm-hmm.
And you rent to them, and you find out that they're stopping up the toilet.
Yeah.
Their kids are banging on the floor, just tore up your new apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, these are real things that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you need people who do the work.
Mm-hmm.
You need social workers who are in there, who's training people, who's giving them the tools to move through the shelter, the street shelter system, and an apartment. And then let's also be real. You can't throw them out there and leave them by themselves.
Right.
You have to have an aftercare program.
Mm-hmm.
The agency that I've been working with, they are about aftercare.
Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? When the person is living inside the shelter, they're not doing anything that's so horrific that we can't help them to address it. But after we move them,
Mm-hmm.
there's no one to help.
Yeah.
Right. And there is a big stigma, like you said, like landlords are scared. Especially if you never dealt with HUD or Section 8, they're like, I don't want you to. The first thing I hear people always say, like, don't people like that damage your homes, or
People like that,
or people like that,
People
break
like
up
that.
your homes
Sure.
and damage your stuff. So
Sure.
there's this stereotype around, affordable housing in HUD that these people are doing this. But like you said, landlords don't want to be put in a position where they have to be the babysitter, especially like if you only have a 4-person dwelling, as opposed to like if you got 20,000 units or 15,000, you may actually have those ongoing services that may be able to provide, whether that's financial wealth classes or, turkeys on, giveaways and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like they don't want to be that social worker. Like
right. But these are the things that people forget.
Mm-hmm.
If you lose your apartment, so many things happen, how are you supposed to remember to cook?
Yeah.
I worked with a woman. This is not long after my brother died. I had developed a housing program for this church, and it was dedicated to people who have AIDS. So I had a really, really good team. Every morning, Rodney would walk in and he would say, I'm going to change her name. So you got to go to Barbara's house. She has garbage lined up around the wall. And every morning I was focused on the program was really running nice. Everything looked beautiful. We found these beautiful apartments. We were housing people who have AIDS. What could go wrong? And why is Rodney complaining? And my complaint about Rodney, because I had serious problems with him because we couldn't get in the office early enough to make coffee. And he would make coffee, and I tell you what, he made the worst coffee I've ever tasted in my life. But we would drink it. Right. We were such a small office, he would know if you didn't drink his coffee, and he'd say, Miss Lee, I made coffee for you. And he'd bring the coffee, and I'd be sitting there thinking to myself, Lord, deliver me. I'm going to hold my nose and drink this because he won't leave my office until I do. But he would complain that Barbara kept the garbage in her apartment. So one morning he comes in and he is just beside himself because he had just left her apartment, and he's begging me to go over and take a look at it because it's running over now. And he's afraid there's going to be rodents. And so I get up. Okay, Rodney, take me over there. And he drives me to this apartment. And I walk in because, first of all, he's the porter. He maintains all of the units. Why are you telling the director that she needs to look at something? So I have that stuck in my craw with him. And I walk in and I look around, and it's unbelievable. I talked to her. She says, okay. She agrees that she's going to put the garbage in the compactor. And Rodney agrees to help. I said to Rodney, do me a favor. Let's all go back to the office. I'm going to talk to Barbara some more. So we get to my office. And this is important because I had a fabulous office. And I had this beautiful new desk, credenza in back of me, computer on top of my desk, high back, reddish looking leather chair. And she's sitting across from me in a chair that's equally as nice and expensive. And I'm talking to her about her apartment. And I'm explaining that I know that she tries to keep it clean. And she's going, yes, 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 okay, okay. And I said, I somehow or another think that you are just agreeing with me because you don't want to be here. She said, are you? I looked at her. She said, you keep talking to me about a compactor. I don't even know what a compactor is. Don't you know I've been living on the street for 7 years? And I looked at her and I thought, wait a minute. She said, I haven't lived it. I don't know where the compactor is. Yeah, now you know. Now you know. You're so stupid. So I get Rodney and I ask him to show her the compactor. I apologized to her because right in that moment, I realized our language changed while she was homeless.
Mhm.
She remembers incinerators.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
I said compact, but
Yeah.
when she asked me if I was effing stupid, and
Yeah.
please take that curse out, bleep it or something.
Well, yeah, we'll bleep it for you. We'll bleep it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When she asked me if I was effing stupid, it occurred to me that the whole world had changed while she was living on the street.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we had to change what we were doing. So I immediately called a meeting with the staff after she got out, got out of the office. And I told them about my exchange. And they were a little confused too. Like, why didn't she just put it in the compact?
Mhm.
I said, listen to the language that we're using.
Mhm.
He doesn't know anything about a compact.
Right.
Right. And to presume that, you know, when we speak to other people in different fields, right? People sometimes automatically assume we know what that person is
You
talking
know
about.
what they're talking about. Right.
It's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
And it's hard for us to understand because you know, we're outside every
It's
day.
literally second nature.
Right, that's right, exactly. And they haven't experienced that. Like you said,
Yeah.
it's almost like being behind the wall and life still goes on. Things change.
Mhm.
Technology changes.
Yeah, people are
Things,
changing.
garbage
Things are different. Absolutely.
all the time, you know, and then we
Absolutely.
forget like how these small details on life, you know, help us just on a day-to-day, you know. I know what a compactor is, like, and that's just a garbage
Yeah.
can. I don't
Yeah.
think that somebody else is like, I don't know what a compactor is, because
Right.
they've been, all they've ever heard their entire life is incinerator. And you know what's funny? I don't even know when it went from incinerator to compactor.
And I don't.
Like,
But just that small thing, that small
Yeah,
thing right
like-
there can
Yeah.
tell you the difference in, you know, where people head is at.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It-
crazy to me.
It was profound. And when I saw her again, I asked her how she was doing. And we talked about that. And I told her how stupid I felt.
Mhm.
And I apologized to her again. And her thing was, the director's apologizing to me. It's like, yeah, the director is wrong
I'm
and
humble
dumb.
enough, right? You're
Right.
humble enough, you know what I mean?
There's no sense in being, it's okay to be wrong, but if you're going to be wrong and strong,
Yeah.
there's something is wrong with that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in another situation, I met this woman who used to sleep on the ground. I was working in the Street to Homes program, and our job was to go out and talk to people. If they didn't want to move into a residence, talk to them about whether or not they were safe.
Mhm.
And I met this woman, and she has since died. But I'd go by and see her every night that I was there, that I was working. I worked the overnight. And every night she would say to me, you know, I think it's ridiculous that you come over here every night and you want to sit around and talk to me.
Mhm.
And we developed such a relationship. I said, I think it's ridiculous that I come over here and every night that I come over here, you tell me that you're surprised to see me. What I have to do? My next move is monkey tricks. And she would just laugh. But one night I drove by and I got out of the car to talk to her, and she said she was feeling depressed. And she said, if anything happens to me, you're the only one that comes out and checks on me. Could you just make sure somebody gives me yellow roses?
Mhm.
And so I said yes. She said that she always liked yellow roses, but nobody had given her roses. So I drove the company's car all the way across town and bought her some yellow roses. And when she woke up, they were there.
Right.
You had to.
When
That's in my spirit, I was like, I hope you did it.
I did it. When I saw her again, and I feel like crying, because when I saw her again the next night, she said, how dare you buy me roses. She said, do you know what it was like? I told you to do that when I died, but you did that and I wasn't dead. Do you know what it was like? I woke up and these roses were here. Nobody ever gave me nothing. And it was like somebody punched me in my stomach that you could go your whole life and be, when I met her, she was about 60 something. And I might have been, I don't think I was quite 50. She was upset because I had given her something that no one gave her. And talking to her, I ended up getting her sister's telephone number. And she wouldn't, you need permission to violate a person's confidentiality. She wouldn't let me call her sister. But I got a call after I hadn't worked for the agency for a few years. And even though my friends would tell her that I said hello, even if they hadn't seen me, she'd say, how's Gay? And they would say, she told me, Gay told me to come and check on you and just make sure you're okay. When she died, she had my information in her wallet, but I didn't work for the agency. So they had to call me to see if I knew her. And I had her sister's phone number. These are incredibly painful experiences to me, that we live in a country as wealthy as the United States, yet we have situations here that can easily be addressed by a group of professional people, and it's not addressed.
Right.
And people look at us and on the one hand want to blame us for homelessness, and on the other hand don't want to help us to get enough political backing to address this problem. This is a serious problem in the United States. This problem was horrifying before the pandemic.
Right. And
then people started losing their place of residence. And so it became worse. I'm so glad that I'm living in a time where I can try to do something. But we really need not so much housing. We need government agencies to close the systemic gap by allowing social workers to do what they do.
Yeah.
We help people to reconnect with their families. We help people to understand their situation and to look at where they are and where they can go from there. I've been a psychotherapist for 29 years. And a friend of mine, her name is Betty. Betty and I still laugh at the amount of food we kept in our office, even though our bosses would say, it's probably not appropriate for you to be so identified with the client that you're giving them food. Well, let me say this. If I need a therapist because my situation has changed so badly that I need food, the last thing in this world I want to do is talk about how much I need food.
Yeah.
I want to eat.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. I want a meal.
Right. Just feed me. Like, yeah. And that's
so I don't want to go see my therapist and talk about how much I want a decent meal. I want a decent meal. I bought I'll never forget this. I bought a turkey
Mhm.
because a young woman was getting her children back and Thanksgiving was coming and she didn't know how to clean a turkey.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I bought a turkey and helped her to clean it in the office.
Mhm.
And there were people who thought, that's disgusting. And then there were people who thought, that is a great idea. Well, a woman couldn't cook for her kids. She
Mhm.
wanted a Thanksgiving dinner, so I taught her how to clean the turkey.
Yeah. There's no price on that. There's no price on that.
And it's so valuable to me because I lived that. She didn't have 9 kids. She had 12 kids. She had 12 kids with one man
Wow.
who was still with her when they lost the kids.
Mhm.
And then they got them back because there was no reason to take them.
Right.
Yeah.
These are experiences I'm so happy that to have had. But the work of a social worker and the role of social workers is to address social injustice. I can't think of a bigger one than the injustice of houselessness, helping people to fix their situations so that they could live a better life.
Yeah, true. And you can't take those moments for granted. And I'm glad you still chose to, help that woman out and show her how to clean that turkey. And the fact that other people be like, oh, here, that's nasty or that's disgusting, help her. And it's like helping another human being is disgusting. You know what I mean? No matter where they at or what stage they at in their life, like, why are we so quick to pass judgment on people who are less fortunate than us or have a less knowledge base? And, I'm not gonna say I'm perfect. You know what I mean? I've probably done something I wasn't even aware of, that put me in that moment. But after having this conversation with you, Dr. Lee, like, I'm definitely gonna have it like in my subconscious, like, one, be less judgmental to people. 2, understand that people have different walks of life, and what you seem as second nature is not second nature for everybody. And that we shouldn't shun people for helping out other people that are less fortunate.
This is why people don't want to ask for help in the first place.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? Because
to be fair, let me just say this. To be fair, 1 second, Chaz. To be fair, I probably shouldn't have been cleaning a turkey inside a mental health clinic. that was more their concern.
Okay. But we know what the intent was behind that gesture. So, I'm glad you did it. We need more people to do it. But yeah, and for time's sake, we want to, continue because we do have a couple more questions to ask you. I don't know if you want to shoot.
Well, we want to go. We a little far gone, but I definitely want to talk about. I worked for juvenile probation and literally been working with kids my whole adult life. From kids that's coming out the system, they was in placement, coming to a program where, you come in and do some job readiness skills and things of that nature. And I thought about the aftercare system you spoke about, because we had in juvenile probation, there was an aftercare system. And I thought about a lot of the times how some of the kids, their families basically gave up on them because they got into trouble. And, we or another agency, another social agency, had to try to find them independent living, right? And when if the kids graduated from the program or get released from the program, chances are that they either stayed with a relative or they basically were homeless, if it came down to that. So I wanted to ask, being that we spoke about teens, there's a lot of teens that's homeless now, or they're houseless, right? They're necessarily homeless, but they're houseless. Their family is not really talking with them, and they don't really have a lot of extended relatives and things of that nature. They might be sleeping on a friend's couch from school or whatever. What are is there a ton of resources for them to receive independent living or receive job readiness skills in order to, even if they get an apartment or get a job, Are there any resources that can help them keep it as well? Because it's hard for teens these days because there's so much, they get stimulated from a lot of different ways. Not even, I didn't even throw in social media yet, and how if you don't do certain things, you're not socially acceptable. You know what I mean? So it's harder for them. So being that, you're not socially acceptable, and God forbid you are dealing with this, houseless, people really gonna like turn their back on you. So what are the resources that we can give them today, or what do you know that can help them?
The first thing that comes to my mind, Chaz, is that somebody has to work with their family.
Yeah.
Someone has to work with the family because the teen is the identified problem. But those problems in that house did not just go away when they put the teen out.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So I would again say social workers are the people who should be providing that kind of intervention. Now I've talked about how certain agencies don't hire social workers, but it's also on social workers to stand up and say, that's my job.
Mm.
We should be doing this. This is an intervention. This is what we need to do. So if they're not getting respect, that's on them.
Yeah.
But I would say that the best kind of intervention is the family intervention.
Because there's love, but there's connection more so.
Exactly, and we have to remember they're children.
Yes. Yes.
And if we help them to get a job and find an apartment, we're guilty of stealing their youth. So we have to get in there and work with that family.
Mm-hmm.
And try to figure out why this person can't live in the house that they should be living in.
Right.
Mm-hmm. What's happening? Sometimes what did the team do?
Right. No, and that's very true. And we see that a lot. What did the team do to kind of basically cause this rift for him or her to not even want to be allowed back in the house? And a lot of times, that story is not told because they don't really say that, So
sometimes there's that, but the parents can't defer their job. There can't be a parent vacancy in your house.
No. It has to be filled the whole time.
Even if my children don't agree with me, they're not hiring somebody to do my job.
Right.
That's my job, and I'm taking responsibility for it.
Mm-hmm.
So the only time teenagers can really rise up against you is when you open the door for them to do that. You have made the teenager the other adult in the house. Then where do they go when they have a problem? My children, I love them to death and they're all grown, but I'm still their mother.
Right. No matter what.
Like it or not, right. I'm still their mother. And there are times I'm gonna say something that's unpopular.
It has to be said though.
And of course they'll tell me they're grown. And I'll take the position. I said what I said. And that's it.
But you have the right.
So what you grown?
Right.
Yeah. But because there's no parent vacancy and there has never been a vacancy,
mm-hmm.
I know about the problems they're having. They'll tell me and we can talk about it. And I can help them to figure out a way to help or fix the problem for them.
Right.
When they were 15, I just fixed the problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and it was difficult many times. There were so many times they were hungry.
Mhm.
But that didn't make me want to put them out because I didn't have any money.
Right.
So we have to get parents back on track. Some of our parents didn't have parents to
Mhm.
teach them.
Right.
And so we have to give them the tools they need to be parents.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and help them to understand how to take care of their families.
Right. It's just like we creating a village, you know, you're giving them the tools. I mean, it's possible, like you said, sometimes people might not ask for help, but if you see a deficiency, then you can step in as a social worker and help, you know, obviously try to hopefully make it a judgment-free zone. Because a lot of times if people are getting help, if they see they are inadequate in something and somebody's really helping them, they might be, you know, kind of skeptical
Sure.
of even taking the help.
Mhm.
But that's where, you know, the village comes in, where everybody kind of has a hand in making this all come to fruition. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. It does take a village, as you're right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had like 2 questions, but I feel like you answered them.
Okay, what were the 2 questions?
So my other question was, what effect does mental illness, substance abuse, and incarceration have on an average homeless person? You know, we did speak on it or touch on it, but you know, if you can give us like a direct answer, you know, not that you haven't, but let's just recap, you know, and bring it all. Let's connect all the dots.
I would venture to say that so substance abuse, mental illness, and incarceration
correct,
are problems that could either cause, they could be the situations that cause the houselessness, or they could be situations that explain that there's a need for assistance.
Yeah.
I'm more inclined to think that when we find that these problems are present, that we just address the situation.
Yeah.
Right.
It's making a contribution by keeping the person from establishing a residence.
Yeah.
And living the kind of life that they want. Because again, most people don't decide that they want to live in the street and they want to do drugs, or they want to commit crimes. Something is driving that.
Right.
You have to ask yourself, and I certainly have. My family is struggling. My mother is absent, or my father is absent, or both parents are there and nobody is working. But this guy keeps telling me he'll give me $100 if I just take this bag to school and give it to Joe, who stands out in front of my school. If I do that every morning, he'll give me $100 a day. What do you think is going to happen?
They're gonna be taking that bag to Joe.
Joe every day. I'm gonna get my $100.
Yeah.
Right. Because math is taught in schools and these kids can count.
Yeah. Right. It's logical.
Yeah.
It's logical. Yeah. And I think, you know, being incarcerated already sets up so many hurdles and boundaries that you gotta get over already, you know. And you know, people always ask, so why you keep going back to jail? Why you keep going back to jail? And to your point that you've made, like, where's the post plan? The aftercare system, once they get out of jail, you know? there's no plan for any of this. You know, people, go to a halfway house and figure it out. Like, it's like, that's not really a plan, because it's like, what do I do once I get there? You know, it's just like,
well, right. And in certain communities, that's part of the pipeline.
exactly.
The pipeline is from home to school, to the community, to the school, to prison. That is the pipeline. I think the worst thing I could ever hear come out of anyone's mouth, and I've heard it several times, you don't need a degree, or you don't need this. He doesn't want to go to a vocational school. He doesn't want to get any kind of training. He'll get a job. That is the worst thing that can come out of an adult's mouth, to me.
Why is that?
Well, because.
Well, for the people. I mean, I know, but.
Yeah. The reason that's horrible is because you are setting up the path to prison.
Yeah.
That is the path to prison. If you don't want to go to school, and
a lot of free time.
but what is your plan for your life? Let's talk about your life.
Yeah.
Because you will have a plan. Now, I've had a very good life. The New York City Transit Authority fed my children for a long time.
MTA.
There are jobs out there. So you don't want to go to school, and you don't want to go to a training program. Are you saying you don't want to do this because a politician is saying that this is what's needed, or you really don't want to do it? Did someone tell you that you don't have to do it? When I ran for office in the city of Newburgh, we were asked about our experience. And my opponents, two of them said, well, you don't need a doctorate to do this job. And I thought to myself, but what message is that you're sending to some young person who thinks getting a doctorate might be a good idea, or getting a degree might be a good idea? And the other person had a bachelor's degree, and for the life of me, I couldn't understand what that was about, only as a political chip to take a jab at me. My position was this: don't even answer that. Because if you can't tell your children that college is the way, that certain kinds of jobs are the way, or that doing a certain thing is a good thing, if you don't know anybody that you could say that to, then shame on you. You haven't lived long enough. Our children in every area in this country have to be shaped, and they have to be encouraged, and they can't be punished for not going to school or not going to college. But we are responsible for helping them to design a life that is productive.
Exactly. I agree. Trade versus school. It's like, I feel like every other episode we talk about it because it's so relevant to our culture, nowadays. And
you gotta make sure you do one of them, though.
Yeah, one of them. You have to do one of them. Yeah. There's you don't bash one or the other, but you got to be productive in life. That's just the bottom line.
Right.
So yeah. So
how we want to contribute to society.
Yeah. What's your contribution? Right. What's your contribution to society? So we definitely covered a lot of ground, Dr. Lee.
Thank you so much.
And we appreciate you so much for coming. But we got the problem. We got part of we got part of the solution with the social workers and everything. So what other solutions do you see out there? Because, it's easy to say, oh, go to a landlord and say, oh, can you lower the rent so more people can move in, obviously, right? And we can lower the homeless rate, because, people think by lowering the rent, you can just, that'll fix the problem, right? But on a company standpoint, as a landlord, you're probably like, I can't lower the rent because you still want these services. You still want the maintenance to be taken care of. Depending on
bills have to be paid.
Exactly.
On the other side.
Expenses and bills have to be paid. People, staff, everything. So it's just not easy to just tell a management company, oh, lower your rent. Like what other solutions do we have to solving this crisis outside of social workers and putting people on that path, or asking landlords just to lower the rent, just to move people in? And like you said, that's still not effective because there's no plan behind that, right? So what other plans would you like to see outside of social workers be implemented into this crisis or this issue that we're having across the nation?
I would like for people to have an opportunity to work.
Working.
Landlords are taxpayers,
right?
And they're property taxpayers, and property taxes are used to defray the cost for public services, city services. That's why you pay city taxes. Those are police, fire, and sanitation. Much of that money is based on the tax contributions from businesses. So to ask a business to pay less really means that they're not going to be able to keep up with their expenses.
Right.
But the other contributions that can be made is that we have got to get to the place where we are saying, without shaming people, you need a job. And let me help you to get a job.
Right.
And no, you can't get a job making $80 an hour because you have no skills. But you can get
realistic about the situation. Right.
You can make a contribution to yourself. I worked with this man. Well, we didn't work together. We would have many conversations, and that's the context I would use our work. Many conversations about vocational training. And I absolutely love what he does. He's a shoemaker, and he stitches leather. He wanted to teach someone. And I thought, wow, this is pretty nice. If he can find somebody to train, I'll offer $1,000 scholarship. And the response was, you're just trying to throw your money around. And my response was, no, I don't have any money to throw.
Yeah.
But I can save for a cause.
Right. That part.
Yeah.
I work with a woman who, and we've done some collaborating at least, who runs a resource center. And she provides vocational training. And there are so many people who refuse. That's a mindset that I think people have to step away from. It is really a mindset that Black people have to step away from.
Yeah.
You cannot sit on the street corner like your decoration. You've got to move.
Right. Gotta keep going, moving
Yeah.
forward.
Keep pushing.
Well, what happens is the neighborhood is seen as low income. And so someone assumes that all Blacks need low income housing.
Which, can I say real quick, because you'll be surprised how many other cultures are on the program more than our culture is.
Well, that's
because
because
areas that we in, it seems like, you know,
Or they
but
kind of do a microscope on this one small portion and kind of bring it to everybody.
that's how they advertise it. That's
Right.
how they advertise it.
what happens, quite honestly, some people take advantage of resources and some don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. No one is coming into the United States thinking I'm gonna just, upstage all of those Black people. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. No. It's self-preservation. These are people who come here looking for a different kind of life.
Right.
Yeah.
And when they see opportunities, they seize them. But if you've been sitting on a corner for a few years and sleeping outside at night, and you're angry because someone is coming into your neighborhood and taking a job and getting an apartment, that needs to be looked at, but not by a social worker and not by the person who's having the success. It needs to be looked at by the person in the situation.
Yes.
Right. Because what are you doing about it?
Right.
That's a self-reflecting moment. It's not on nobody else but
No,
you.
definitely not.
You have the choice to do better. I mean, it's easy to not be dealing with depression and all this and say like, yeah, it's your choice. But in the scheme of things, like it is still, you know what I mean? You choose to wake up this morning. You choose to be unhappy or unhappy about the situation. But if you don't create a plan or execute anything,
only person you can be mad at is yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Exactly. You have to take responsibility for yourself and your situation. And you have to try to ask for help.
Yes.
Right.
And when you're receiving the help, it's important to take a look at what you're receiving and be appreciative.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
So.
Sure.
Well,
that was great.
Yeah, we
Done
covered
so much.
We covered so much.
We hope
I feel like I was educated during and as all episodes, we try to make sure we are educating ourselves, but also educating the people that are viewing our show as well. So we thank you for taking the time to talk.
Let me say to you that I was so honored to be asked and then bold to pick up the phone and say, hey, I thought you was going to interview me. Because
that definitely happened.
I wanted an opportunity to present my doctoral capstone. But the funny thing is, I never imagined that the two of you would be so ready for me. I thought, oh, I'm going to run. I will talk about this, this, and this. And it was just really touching to see that there are people, young people, looking at the culture of things, looking at the way people are living. And they have this podcast that is so nice.
Thank you.
I appreciate.
We put a lot of work into this.
Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Having another doctor on our show, and to show that we really stand behind, trying to better our culture, or at least awaken the mindset to
Mhm.
have a different approach to certain things and certain aspects that we may or may not have been doing correctly in the past,
Yep.
you know? And we want to change that stigma and just open our culture's mind. And, you know, we look, just as much as we thank you, those words were amazing, but like, thank you for
sure.
even saying yes and being wanting to be a part of our movement and what we're trying to give back to our people. So
I appreciate
we'll be having you back, Dr. Gately.
Yes.
We've already spoken about a couple topics, but we're not going to tell the people yet. We're going to make them wait, you know. But we love your expertise. Thank you for sharing everything.
You.
Thank you. Can you tell us where we can find you, all your social medias, or you know, any companies?
Okay.
That's with us now.
Okay. I will follow you on Instagram. And are you on Instagram under cultural content or culture content?
Culture Content 100.
Yeah, Culture Content 100.
But we
want yours.
Yeah.
For the people, so they can look you up. Like,
okay,
where people can find you.
Okay. I am. Well, you'll have the recording, so it's Elect Gay Lee.
Okay.
And that's at Facebook. I'm on Twitter, Dr. Gay Lee. I'm on Facebook, Gay Lee, and I'm on Instagram, Dr. Gay Lee.
Excellent.
Okay, we're gonna tag all those at the bottom for you, so people can see it and go follow you and get some inspiration, because I was inspired today.
I definitely was inspired too.
I love it. I was so impressed with you two.
Yeah, we came ready.
We tried to.
Yeah.
So we gotta be ready. You know, we can't just. You know, when we first started the show, we always said we're gonna kick nonsense or we're gonna give some substance. And this is that moment. Why? You know, we need substance, and you provided that for us.
Another thing too, and we spoke about, we always wanted, growing up, we always wanted somebody that kind of, that big homie or big brother or a big person that kind of tell us what to do and what not to do. Right. So our show, we wanted to basically, not saying what you should do, what you shouldn't do, but give you the resources what we see is important for our culture to propel to the next level. So we are providing that. And you did a tremendous job sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
And we just, very humble, and we appreciative of everything. So thank you.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So hold on. So that's it, we are wrapping up the show, this episode.
Okay.
Be tuned. We hope you enjoyed it from beginning to end. And again, my name is Kay.
I'm Chaz.
We are Culture Content, and our special guest today was Dr. Gay Lee. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation, and
until next time.
That's a wrap.
Thank you.
We'll be back.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Gay, you take care. Have a good one. We'll see you soon. We're going to follow up with you because we need another episode.
Okay.
All right, now. You take care.
Take care. Because when I turn it off.
I'm going to stop recording.
Okay.